A life of consumption condemns us to find masters to govern over us. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean when we have a life of consumption? Well, a life of consumption is someone who wakes up every day and consumes TV, consumes food, consumes a podcast, goes and consumes the news, consumes their email, consumes their social media. They don't really add back to the world. So they're not really creating other value. Now, and anytime I start to feel like I'm off balance, anytime I start to feel like I'm out of momentum and I'm feeling stuck and I'm feeling like, man, it's just, I've got these goals. I've been wanting to wake up early or whatever it is. Oftentimes, guys and gals, I can go back and the answer to why I'm in that spot is because I'm consuming too much. It's because I'm flipping and scrolling on social media and consuming things versus creating value back for other people's lives. It's a beautiful day. I just dropped off my kids to school, and something that a couple of years ago I started doing that most every day, and now that my wife isn't working anymore, I do it every day. And it's something I am pumped to do. I love it. I love seeing the smiles on their faces, or sometimes the not smiles on their faces, and trying to create smiles on their faces and get them positive in the morning. It's kind of one of my aims, is to be their hype dad. When they get out of the car, make sure they're positive, make sure they're encouraging somebody today. It's something I love to do. So what I'm going to be talking about right now, this is in my series of life truths. And if you didn't hear the first episode of this, these are going to be Trevor Truck Talks. And over the last year, so I've been writing down what I call life truths, something that is universal, I feel, across all people, all human beings, or at least all people who want to achieve great things. And they're little tidbits of something you can take away and live in your life today and or spread to other people. And one of the reasons I started to document these life truths out of books I'm reading or from mentors or just from life experiences is for something else to pass along to my kids, for something to help me stay steady as far as focusing on the right things. And who knows, maybe it might end up in a book or a big blog post someday. So the first life truth I talked about was criticism. Go check out that episode. If you ever find yourself criticizing someone, or you ever find yourself getting criticized, that's going to be a big unlock for you. Go check out that one on criticism. So this one here, this life truth is on consumption. Now, exactly what you're doing right now is consuming my content, right? Consumption is something we all do. Consumption is important to keep the economy going. We have to be consuming food in order to live. Our gas, our vehicles consume gas or electricity. Consumption is a normal part of our everyday life. But what happens oftentimes is we get too wrapped up into consumption, and we're consuming far more than we're adding back to the world. We're consuming far more value than we're actually creating in the world. And so this life truth came from the book War of Art. And I'll read it to you right now. So consumption. A life of consumption condemns us to find masters to govern over us. A life of consumption condemns us to find masters to govern over us. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean when we have a life of consumption? Well, a life of consumption is someone who wakes up every day and consumes TV, consumes food, consumes a podcast, goes and consumes the news, consumes their email, consumes their social media, and they don't really add back to the world. So they're not really creating other value. Now, for me, I will, consume some podcasts, and I'll consume some blog posts, and I'll consume a little bit of social media. But what I try to do is I try to keep my balance to where I'm actually adding more value and creating more than I'm consuming. So that could be training. I'm creating a training that people can use and see. I'm creating a podcast like this so people can get value out of it. I'm creating value within the business. I'm creating jobs instead of just consuming resources. I'm creating value back to my community. So purchasing a building and then renovating the building, so adding value back to the building versus just consuming building, and then marketing, getting people in it, so adding value back into that world. And anytime I start to feel like I'm off balance, anytime I start to feel like I'm out of momentum and I'm feeling stuck and I'm feeling like, man, it's just, I've got these goals. I've been wanting to wake up early or whatever it is. Oftentimes, guys and gals, I can go back and the answer to why I'm in that spot is because I'm consuming too much. It's because I'm flipping and scrolling on social media and consuming things versus creating value back for other people's lives. Okay, oftentimes when I find myself in that spot where I'm starting to slip backwards mentally, or like I said, your momentum starts to stagnate or slip backwards, it's usually because you have not kicked it into gear to add value and create value. What you're doing is consuming value. And when we consume, eventually we get indigestion. You're consuming ideas, you're consuming thoughts, you're consuming other things. And all of a sudden we have a million ideas of what we should do, or a million ideas of what we should be like, or a million ideas of how we're not living up to someone else's standard, but we're not really implementing and creating the value from those ideas. So I want to challenge you. I'm going to read this again. A life of consumption condemns us to find masters to govern over us. So we talked about the life of consumption. Now, what does it mean to have masters to govern over us? If we are consuming tons of social media, what do you think that master is, or who do you think our master is during our day or even in that moment? Okay, what if these cell phones that we have are mainly used to consume rather than create? I'm recording this podcast on my cell phone right now, y'all. Okay? And so I want to challenge you. Is your cell phone a consumption machine or is it a creation machine? And where can you start leveraging this tool and other tools around you to create rather than just to consume? Because these cell phones can pretty darn quick become that Lord that governs over us. Okay, it can very quickly become the master during our day, where we wake up during the day, we wake up in the morning, the first thing that you do is you say hi to your master and you grab that phone and you flip through social media because you're in consumption mode versus creation mode, right? You pick it up 35 times a day. I don't remember what the average is, but it's something like people pick up their cell phone something like 40, 50, 60, 70 times a day and look at it. If that's not a master, I don't know what is. And the reason for that is not because we're creating. It's not because we're saying, I'm going to pick up this phone and add value. It's because our brain is so hardwired in that animal brain part of our noggin to say, I have something to consume. I need to consume this thing. And it becomes a master. Or Facebook groups, or the news. Right now, especially during this election cycle that we just finished up, so many people got wrapped up in the election in big ways, whether it was on the left or the right or the center, it doesn't matter. But they got so wrapped up in the election in these huge ways because they're in consumption mode, because they're just consuming all these articles, watching the YouTube videos, watching the things that support their stance, and very little things that actually give them other information. And when that happens, when we're in a spot like that, the news becomes our master. That narrative that the news pushes becomes our master. But let's flip the script a little bit. Let's say that instead of watching the news all the time or reading every article or being on social media or picking up our phone 40, 50, 60 times a day, what if instead of doing that to consume, we said, for every one thing I consume, I have to create something. Okay, so it could be, if I'm going, let's say this, for every 3 things I consume, be even more fair. For every 3 things I consume, I have to create something. Okay, so for every swipe up and down Instagram or Facebook, I have to create some value back to the world. I've got to record a post on a struggle I'm having, how I'm getting through it. Or I've got to record a story on, something I learned today that maybe other people can learn as well. Or it could even literally be nothing about that totally adds value to other people. It could be adding value back to you and your life. So you could be recording videos of your kids so you guys can watch it in 5, 10, 20 years. That's one of the most favorite things that my kids love to do. We love to do it as well. Is we created a YouTube channel years ago. I think when my daughter was 2 and she's 10 now. And we upload videos every single quarter, and that's kind of our family YouTube channel. It's our version of our VHS tapes, and they watch them all the time, and they just laugh and crack up, and it's so funny. And so if I would have been in those moments just consuming social media versus taking out my phone and in some of those moments recording those awesome moments for future watching with my kids, and we wouldn't have the pleasure of being able to look back at the memories that we created together. And so I want to challenge y'all right now. I want to challenge y'all. Are you in consumption mode or are you in creation mode? And I'm going to finish up this quote with this. A life of consumption condemns us to find masters to govern over us. If you're mostly in consumption mode, if over 50% of your time during your day is consuming, I guarantee you have a master or multiple masters governing over you. It's either your cell phone or the news or social media or something in your job, whatever it is, y'all. Find something to create and not just consume. And I'm going to take this off the digital world too. Let's say it's at your house. You're consuming so much resources. You're consuming, and making tons of trash. You're consuming and wasting tons of water, whatever it is. Look at your consumption versus creation. Are you creating things or are you throwing everything away? Are you taking the thing and fixing it and adding value back to that thing? Or are you just throwing it in the garbage and consuming and buying a new one? That's the consumer mentality that honestly is going to get America in trouble. That's a consumer mentality that leads to debt. It's a consumer mentality that leads to, honestly, unhappiness. People that have tons of things and become hoarders, or even if you're not a hoarder, if you like to buy things for kind of that mental or emotional high, and you have lots of things sitting in your garage or sitting in your closet that you don't use, but has a weight in your mind, that's consumption mentality. I know people who have masters that are their home. Their things, their stuff is their master. Okay, they're nervous to go on big, long vacations because they're afraid of their stuff is going to get stolen. They won't let anyone borrow their things because they're afraid their stuff is going to get hurt. They won't step forward and renovate a house or clean up the room, whatever it is, because of their stuff. And so I want to challenge you, both on the digital side and the physical side. What does your consumption look like? And how do you flip it back over into creation mode? As soon as you do, guys and gals, as soon as you flip it back over into creation mode, you're going to find your income going up. You're going to find your happiness going up. You're going to find your momentum going up when you get out of consumption back into creation. So the next one we're going to be talking about, y'all, down on this list of life truths is actually talking about freedom. And this one comes from the book War of Art as well. Freedom, this one hit me hard. And then we've got self-doubt and fear and success and happiness and order and tidiness and ego and self, weighing opportunity, getting people to open up. Busy is bad, strategy, saying yes, momentum, the whole thing, guys. How to create your dream business and future life truths. Check them out. If you like these, DM me on Instagram. Let me know you like them, and I'll keep on doing these. And guys, have an amazing rest of the week. If you haven't checked out our webinar on evergreen marketing yet, go to carrot.com/evergreen. Yes, I am telling you to consume something on a podcast episode where we talked about consumption. But what I'm asking you to do on that training is to get off the consumption mentality, get into creation mode and creating value back to the world, value back to your market so they can consume your content so you can change your life. All right, guys, carrot.com/evergreen, and we will talk soon.